Welcome back to another episode of A Guide to Poor Parenting, a podcast where me, Jason,
and me, Jennifer,
have a few drinks
and talk shit about our kids.
Please follow us on Instagram and YouTube at Guide to Poor Parenting,
and Facebook, TikTok at Poor Parent Pod.
And if you have any funny stories about your kids,
or if you need some bad parenting advice,
call us at 256-274-1329
and leave a message, please.
Yes, this is new for our season, but we're so excited to hopefully get some story times because we are slowly running out of stories.
Well, I have one now with the fire extinguisher.
That's true. All right, Miss Jennifer, I am so excited because this is our first, I guess, I don't know how to describe this guest. I've read his bio, a little bit of your bio, but we were actually, I felt so professional because we were contacted by a PR firm.
We're like, ooh,
I know. I felt like
now.
We are a real podcast now.
Yeah.
So, Jennifer, please meet our new friend, hopefully, Ron Platt. Do you go Ron or Ronald?
Ron.
Ron Platt.
Ron Platt.
Unless
nice
you're my mother, and then
Ron.
it's Ronald, I know I'm in trouble.
Okay.
Yeah, and no. I don't want to make you feel like you're in trouble.
Mr. Ron, now, we were talking about this before we started recording, but how did you come into our lives?
Well, I opened up an association called the National Association for Single and Divorced Families, NASDF.org, and we've basically replicated what AARP has done. AARP, if you don't know who they are, I don't know, you'd have to be living in a box somewhere. But because once you turn 50, you start getting letters from them. But they basically provide product, services, support for people over 55, and they advocate for Social Security, Medicare, and elder fraud. So years ago, when I was in the insurance department, when I was in the insurance business, my dad and I were doing product development. So we did really niche-y insurance underwriting for, say, somebody who wanted hole-in-one insurance for some kind of golf tournament, and they wanted to guarantee that if somebody got a hole-in-one, that grand prize would be insured. We did really weird stuff. So I'm sitting with my dad at lunch, and he said, I always wanted to come up with an insurance product that would guarantee child support and alimony for death, disability, and involuntary unemployment. And I thought, that's freaking brilliant.
Yeah.
And I said, wait a minute, we have an association that we're using for something else. Why don't we do what AARP does and open it up to divorce and single families? And my dad says, that's brilliant. And we both ran back to our computers, and that was 30 years ago.
Oh, wow.
30 years ago, nobody was doing it.
You were 12.
And he said, I don't want to start the association until I place the insurance product. And God bless, he was like a pit bull with a tire. He would not let go. He, for 30 years, tried calling every insurance company, spoke to every underwriter, went to Lloyd's of London, and everybody said, no, we don't want to do it. So we kind of tabled it. And then I was at a seminar. I'm in real estate now, and I was at a seminar, and a guy comes up and says, I'm looking for 4 levels of residual income. And I said, well, how about 1 and you don't need the other 3? Well, what do you got? And of course, that made me go back and dust off the business plan. And the more I worked through the business plan that we had established, it excited me again, because my passion, as I'm a foster parent, I got my kid when he was 13 years old, and I saw the atrocities that were going on in the foster care system. These overworked caseworkers, underfunded things that can't provide to these children. These caseworkers have some 20 to 30, 40 kids for one person. You can't possibly manage that, especially when they're foster kids. They require a lot more attention. And I thought, I've got to be able to do something for these kids. And I felt that this was the outlet to do it. I want to give children a voice when they're in court. They have ad litems, but the ad litems have come to me and said the courts aren't listening. I've seen court cases go on for years. I've seen child custody cases go on for 10, 12 years. And basically it all gets down to these kids are not receiving the type of love and home life that they should be getting. So how can I change that? And this association gave me that outlet to go ahead and do that. So our advocacy is geared towards foster care reform. Now, that gentleman who I went to who wanted to potentially invest in our association decided not to. And he says, well, if it's such a good idea, why hasn't somebody else done it? And I thought, well, that's stupid. But if AARP has 38 million members, why hasn't somebody competed with them?
Right.
So, and he said, well, that's good, but we're going to pass. So I'm driving home, and sometimes you hear dead voices come into your head. And my dad, who had passed, downloaded to me and said, you don't have shit. He said, you have to go out and mortgage the house, start the company, and people will start listening to you and start throwing money at you. And I thought, I'm driving home. So I go home to my better partner and sit him down. He's a risk adverse type person, and said, honey, I want to mortgage the house. And he said, why? And I said, well, I got to start this company. And he's known about how passionate I am about this company. I just haven't had the opportunity to do it. He said, what's the worst case, best case scenario? I said, the worst case scenario is our mortgage payment's $1,000 more than what we're currently paying. Best case scenario is we start $1 billion company and we never have to worry about money again. And we can take that money and reinvest it into our community and reinvest it into helping these kids and hire lobbyists. And he said, okay, I'm in. So
Wow.
I hired the PR company, local company here in St. Pete. I always like the reactions when I go to PR companies. They always come back and say, well, you have no competition. No, I know. There's like 26 million people out there that we can go to. I'm aware. There's like 1.7 million people that are getting divorced every year. No, I'm aware of that. Nobody's marketing to these. I said, I'm aware of that. So they get
That's
it.
why I'm coming to you.
Right. They're getting all excited. Like, we've never had a company that had no competition. So it wasn't just putting together the website. There's a bunch of stuff that needs to take place behind the scenes, companies I needed to contact, products and services that we needed to put in there. So we put it
Paperwork.
We put the site together and we did a soft launch. And just as I was doing the soft launch, a buddy of mine called and said, "Did you ever place the insurance product?" I said, "No." He goes, "I'm going to get you on the phone with somebody." And he gets me on this phone with this 70-year-old gentleman, Italian guy, and he says, "What do you got?" And I said, "Well, I got this insurance product my dad's been wanting to place." And I explained it to him, and he goes, "You got an actuarial report?" I go, "I do." He goes, "Send it to me." So I sent it to him. The old-time underwriters were the best ones because they understood how to take a risk, because the risk is only as hard as the premium you can charge, right? So, but today, insurance companies don't believe in any of that now. So this guy said, I like what you've got. I like the actuarial report. Let's do it." And I thought, "Excuse me, what?" He goes, "No, I'll do it. Let's do it." So next thing you know, we have Support Insured now up and running. And what we do is, as I said, it guarantees that whoever is paying the child support and alimony, if they die, become disabled, or if they're the company that they're working for lays them off, or if they're an entrepreneur and they just lost a major account, they need to close the business, we'll continue paying the maintenance payments, the child support and alimony, for up to a year, and give you $1,000 to go ahead and start doing the legal things you need to do to make sure he or she continues paying you.
Okay, and so that's what that guy did for you, is to
Made
be
the
able
connection.
to make that connection.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, of course he'll
Yeah,
make
I don't know much about insurance. I know I pay it, and that's about it.
Jennifer works for a local company, and I'm a software developer, so
Yeah.
we don't know much about insurance beyond the premiums we pay.
Yeah.
Well, it was interesting when I was in the insurance business and I'd go to a party and they'd say, "What do you do for a living?" I'm like, "Insurance." Everybody would walk away. When I got into real estate and they were like, "What do you do?" I'm like, "Real estate." Everybody comes together. "Oh, I've heard blah, 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 blah." And suddenly I was Mr. Popular. So clearly there's a difference between the two businesses.
Yeah. Just a little bit.
Yeah.
So so what are we drinking today on the pod, Mr. Ron?
I have tequila and lemonade. I don't know what
So
it's
do
called.
we.
We when the PR person contacted us, I was like, "Hey, I don't know if Ron's up drinks or not. If he doesn't, that's totally fine. We've had to do it, we've done a non-alcoholic version, but the whole I guess subtitle of our podcast is the podcast where we have a few drinks and talk shit about our kids." So I was like, ask. And so I was really surprised when she's like, "Oh yeah, Ron drinks tequila and lemonade." I'm like, I gotta go buy some tequila.
And how is it?
It's not bad. I didn't have, it's not like fresh lemonade.
Right.
It's just I think Crystal Light.
That's
and
what we
I had to
use.
Okay, perfect. And I went to Costco and got some tequila reposado. I don't know, it was $20.
Reposado.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's pretty good.
Yeah.
It doesn't taste, I can't really taste the tequila, and I do not like tequila that much.
Yeah.
So I usually drink Cosmos, and it's now gone to espresso martinis, and then I got the lemonade and tequila. I'm like, oh, that's pretty good too.
Well, this is a good summer drink.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very summery.
And I'm not a big lemonade fan because I feel like lemonade makes you want to drink more. It's just like when you eat something salty, you're drinking, more. I don't know. For some reason, lemonade just is like, I need more to drink. But with you not being able to taste the tequila,
Exactly.
and it's refreshing on a hot summer day. This would be the best one. Just don't have any plans, because as soon as you get up, you're going to be like, I've had 3. Oh,
Yeah.
damn, there's the tequila.
That's why my husband doesn't let me make the cocktails. I make them too strong.
Yeah, I made Jason's a little strong because I thought it was my glass. So he probably has 2 shots of tequila in his, and then
fine.
I went ahead and put 2 shots in mine.
We
Ish. It's pours, so it
Sure.
could be 3.
I
I don't know how to
Mississippi,
measure.
2 Mississippi, 3.
That's right.
I didn't even do that. I was just, you know, until I got to the top, and I'm like, yeah, that's mine. And he's like, no. And then there's big glass I'm out of. I'm like, well, okay, I might have 4 shots in mine. I don't know.
There you go.
We have to be careful when we record these podcasts, because when we first started, we did 3 in a row, and we drank a whole bottle each podcast of wine. I was snockered by the end of it. By the end of the 3rd episode, I was so drunk.
Yep.
And we've had episodes. Well, we'll record episodes back to back, and if I'm not careful, I'm just a giggly mess.
It's so much fun.
I have to go home and cook lasagna for 5 people, so I have to be somewhat sober when I get.
Nice.
I mean, you know.
Well, you got time.
Correct.
Yeah. I'm a German Irish, so I
She
have
never
a very
feels anything.
strong constitution. So it takes a lot to get me drunk.
There you
so you know, I try to keep it, and then he's just like hee, like
And
giggling.
I'm 6'3" and 220 pounds, and I'm still like a small teen girl. I'm
Yeah.
just like, I can't drink.
Yeah.
I'm a lightweight.
He's a lightweight.
I'm a lightweight.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna take a quick break, and we'll be right back. All right, Mr. Ron. So let's turn back the clock a bit.
The turn back time.
That's right.
Oh wait, I
that
can't
sounds like
sing
a
that
60
because then
minutes.
they might make us pay for it.
Hopefully, I don't know. Some podcasts they will sing straight up the whole song and don't get dinged for copyright infringement. So
I'm not gonna try.
hopefully YouTube won't comment too much.
Right.
So you are in St. Petersburg, Florida now. Are you originally from Florida?
Yes. My husband and I both born and raised in Miami, so we're the original 305s, as they say.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you know all the Golden Girls then?
Yes. They're still my friends.
Good. So how did y'all end up in so when did you end up in St. Pete?
7 years in April. He came home from work one day and said, I think I'm done. And I had been thinking about it for quite some time. I think my breaking point was I'm standing at a stop sign in front of a school zone, and an SUV speeds right through the stop sign and keeps going. And I got so pissed that I chased after the guy. Went down a main street. We're at a red light. I get out of the car and I start yelling at the top of my lungs, "That was a goddamn skull zone!" And 4 guys get out of the car, and I'm thinking, "Oh, I'm dead." And it's funny because my husband was on the phone going, "Get in the car!" And I'm like,
Lord.
I'm so pissed. I got spit coming out of my mouth, and I think I had intimidated them. Because all they kept saying is, "Get back in the car! Get back in the car!" And I got back in the car. I slammed the door, and my husband said, "You need to pull over." So when I got home that night, and he happened to say, "I think I'm done," it just was the right moment. Miami has, growing up in Miami, it was a much different city back then. Where we used to go to strawberry fields, of course, are now major thoroughfares and shopping centers. And they just keep building and building without thinking about the infrastructure or the road systems that you need to handle all these people. So while you're sitting at 20 minutes in a 4-lane highway and you're looking to see the new development has 500 units they're building, you're thinking, where are those people going to go? Like, it's only going to make it worse. So there was no quality of life, and it got expensive. So you were always working to pay the mortgage, to pay the car, and of course you live in Miami, so you have to drive something fabulous. Otherwise, you're going to be bashed or whatever. You don't go to the beach anymore because the joke is if you live in Miami, you don't go to the beach because parking is expensive. It's a bitch to get down there. Riding a bike is a dangerous thing to do because the drivers drive like crazy. So there is no quality of life. The restaurants are fantastic. So a buddy of mine moved to St. Petersburg, and I had never heard of it. I knew there was Tampa. I think I had driven through St. Pete one time when I left the Tampa airport. I was driving back to Miami. And he said, "You've got to come check this place out." He said, "The arts. We have the Dali Museum. We've got the Holocaust Museum. We've got art everywhere. He says it's just you got to come here. So the minute we crossed the Sky Bridge, and there's a reason why it's called the Sky Bridge because it's probably one of the highest bridges in the. My husband and I turned to my husband and I said, "Do you feel that?" And he said, "I do." It was like an energy thing. And we ended up spending 3 months staying at different Airbnbs around the city to see which part of the city we want to be in. And we moved here. It's just it's magical. It is. I call it magical.
Well, that's nice. Now, you said Dolly. Is that Dolly Parton?
No, Dali.
Dali.
Like the surrealist painter.
Yes.
Oh, Dahlia.
I think it's Dali.
Yeah, I think he did the melting clocks, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Well, he did a lot of things, yes. But
Well, I just heard
that's
Dolly.
that's probably his most famous
Yes.
one that
I
I know.
mean, I hang around a lot of gays, so I heard Dolly, and I was like, "Ooh, there's a Dolly Parton museum. We gotta go see that."
well, and in Miami, Dali means let's go. So you gotta be careful.
I don't know.
Dali.
We are really close to the Dollywood here, so that's why we were.
Got
When you said Dolly, I was like, he must mean the abstract painter, not
See,
Dolly Parton.
and I'm Dolly Parton Museum. Ooh, yeah. Not that I don't like art museums.
No,
but,
I understand. We have a ton of them, but we also have a great LGBTQ community. The city is, Florida's a red state, but we're one of the blue spots in the state.
That's us.
Yep. I'm sitting here in my office right now, and they put up this 48-story skyscraper across the street from me, which is kind of saddening because it's changing the atmosphere around here. But still, you can walk down the street and people are friendly. We have farmers markets. We have a lot of art shows. There's always something to do in the city, and we live like a mile away from downtown, so we bike everywhere. And I live
Nice.
a block away from the bay, so we have a kayak that I schlep down the street and stuff, and it's a great place to live.
That's nice.
we went to, not Tampa. Was it
We've
Tampa?
been to Orlando.
Yep.
And then we've been
We
to.
went on a cruise, but I think it was is Tampa and Miami right next to each other?
No. So
No, what am I thinking of?
But they you could take a cruise out of Tampa.
Fort Lauderdale. That's what I
Yeah,
meant. Fort
yeah, we were
Lauderdale
at
and
Fort
Miami.
Lauderdale,
Those are the
yeah.
ones right next to each other. Yeah.
Correct.
We had cruised out of Fort Lauderdale, but I lived in Florida for like a year at Disney World when I worked at the at the parks. But you've mentioned quite a few times you have a husband. So let's, I guess, reverse that. How long have you and your husband been together?
15 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congrats.
I guess one of the other inspiration for the association was I was in a really bad 14-year relationship 5 years before I met my husband. And I was loved conditionally versus unconditionally. He ended up having a drug issue, and he suffered from depression. And towards the end, it just was, I still have PTSD from it. Mm-hmm. But what it taught me was, what do I want? Like 2 years before I ended that relationship, I'm a big journal guy. I journal my thoughts, I journal things all the time. And I started journaling what it was that I wanted in my next relationship. I wanted to be loved unconditionally. I wanted to make sure that if I farted, that I wouldn't be eliminated from the house. If, I wanted somebody to accept me for who I was, good or bad, just like I do with other people. And after I broke up, I needed the break. 5 years later, I'm on the apps, of course, and I specifically said, I'm looking for a permanent partner. Here's what I'm looking for. It's not something you usually put on a gay app, but he saw it, and that's what he was looking for. And I joked because I hit him up, and 2 weeks later he responded, and I forgot who he was.
Oh, no.
Typical.
Exactly.
Oh.
So I'm like, who's this? Oh, yeah, you. Okay. And we went back and forth on the app, and then I said, do you want to risk actually speaking to each other? And we exchanged numbers, and I got on the phone, and he says, what do you do? And I said, I'm a realtor, but I'm a foster parent. And he liked that, and he says, I work with kids, and that's what he does. And great, do you want to meet? And eventually we decided to meet for breakfast at a bagel place that we call Guns and Bagels in Miami. If you're in Miami and you live on the east side, you probably know what Guns and Bagels is. It's a bagel shop next to a gun shop.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So that's why they
I
call
was
it-
wondering, do you get a gun with every bangle?
Apparently so.
A bagel, a shmia, and a gun. Yeah,
There you go.
Exactly. So we met at the bagel place. It's at like 7:30 in the morning, and he shows up in a police outfit. He is a Miami Beach police officer, which he did not share with
okay.
me. And I remember looking up, going, and I'm Jewish.
Am I getting arrested?
I said, "Dear baby Jesus, thank you." Mark that one off the list.
Men in uniform. Check.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, this is cute. I'll go.
Yeah.
So we sat with each other for 2 hours at the restaurant, and I remember looking over at him saying, I like what I see. Do you like what you see? And he said, I do. And I said, would you like to try again? He said, absolutely. So I walked him to his police car, and we made out for a little bit in front of the police car. That was hot.
Ooh.
Ooh.
And it kind of just, it went on from there. Funny enough, I did not know how old he was, and he didn't know how old I was. And I think on the second or third date, I said, how old are you? And it turns out he was 19 years younger than me.
Oh.
Cradle robber.
Yeah, he was 26. I was in
Sugar
my
daddy.
40s.
Oh,
And
wow.
I was really looking to date somebody my own age, but here I am in my 40s, and I'm picking somebody up at their mom's house. Another 40-year-old at their mom's house.
Lovely.
Well,
Hey, whatever works.
exactly.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
these 40-year-olds need to get their shit together because,
Right.
you know.
And, age, I mean, after a certain point in life, age doesn't matter
Yeah.
because it's the connection.
Totally.
And then it's also, you could have a very childish 40-year-old, like you were saying, living with their mom, and you could have a very
Responsible.
grown up,
Yeah.
responsible 26-year-old
Yeah.
with like an old soul kind of thing.
I've
you
got a
know?
very irresponsible 50-year-old brother that still relies on my mom to take care of him. So, yeah.
To my point.
Yeah.
And what was interesting is he just turned 40, and we were all joking that he's finally physically the age he's been mentally for years. Because
so funny.
my friends always say, as I shared, I have a co-parent with my son. It's a long story how that happened. But when we do a family thing, my co-parent always looks to Lorenzo and says, so what does the adult in the family have to say? And we all turn to him and look at him, and he has some wise words of wisdom. So he's way more mature than his age, and that's what attracted me.
Right.
That's awesome. Okay, so 15 years with current husband,
Mm-hmm.
but you said you were a foster parent before that. So let's back up. When did you start fostering with the previous relationship?
No, we were on a break. I want to say
Okay.
it was like a 2-year break, and I had
You and ex or you and
X,
current?
X, no, current.
Okay,
Current.
okay.
We've always been together.
Okay.
I went to visit a friend of mine in California, and he picks me up from the airport, and he said, I know we had this whole weekend planned, but I'm getting my foster kid today. Can you come with me on this journey? And I thought, yeah, I'm a pretty easygoing guy. I'm like, yeah, sure, okay. And I watched him and this beautiful young man I think he was 8 or 9 years old at the time. And I remember my friend and I were sitting at a table while the kid was coloring or something. And when you're a foster parent, you get a book, and it's like the history of the child.
Right.
And he and I were going through it, and it's like kid speaks in tongues, just out of control, physically, all these things. And we both looked at this kid, and he knew his son because he was a big brother for this kid. So they had spent time together, and he never saw any of these things. And you look at this beautiful child, and what we see in the book and what we saw on the floor coloring with 2 different people. And I thought, I do this. This is something I really want to do. So I get back to Miami. I go to a networking event. And this woman gets up and says, I'm looking for straight and coupled LGBTQ adults to take in LGBT foster kids. And I looked up at God and I went, really? Like, like you ask, you
Wow.
receive. So I went up to her and said, I'm in. And it was interesting because in Miami, if you've been there forever, during the AIDS crisis, there were a lot of course, the LGBT community got together, and we had HIV protests, and we had fundraisers and everything else. It was a very tight-knit group of people, and we've kept in touch throughout the years, of course. We're still friends. Probably about 10 people from that community all did the program at the same time.
Oh wow,
Wow.
that's nice.
So we all knew each other, and that made a huge difference because we could all rely on each other and call each other and things like that.
right.
We went through the
help,
process.
help.
Exactly. We went through the process, and I think 4 or 5 of us got kids. I hate to say it, but myself and one other person are the only success stories.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard,
Yeah, it is incredibly hard.
and you don't realize sometimes how hard.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then sometimes if you get one kid and it's just hell, it's like, I don't know if I could go through this again, and then they don't try again.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what happens with foster parents,
Yeah, I don't know if
I think.
we don't like Ron, you and us haven't really talked that much, but before we started, but Jennifer and I both adopted out of the foster care system here in Alabama. In Alabama, like my husband and I actually did look for LGBT youth, but there were so few that were out that we couldn't find any. But what was the process like in Florida? Because for us, it was like 10 weeks of classes. And then for Jennifer, they were literally throwing kids at her. For us, it was like, here are like really old, like the old kids and some kids that have some major problems.
Right.
What was it like?
Well, mine were old kids and had major problems.
Yeah, that's true.
But they did. They ended their. We didn't do it together. They did theirs first.
Yeah.
And I got my first kid before they even got, like.
No. We got Justin in 17.
No, I'm talking about like the dibs or the nibs.
Yeah, in Alabama, we get when you're talking about or when you're interested in adopting, they will send you they call it a non-identifying biography statement, NIBS, on the kids you might get. So I guess what was the process like in Florida?
So oddly enough, at the time, gays could not adopt in Florida. But there was such an issue with these LGBT kids that they came to her name is Amy Rolnick, who is the woman that is also my co-parent. They came to Amy and asked her to put together a group, and it was a private company here in Florida. They privatized the foster care system, and she put together the first group. It was an 8-week class on Saturdays, and then when we got the license, I remember we had a party at somebody's house, and she goes, "Here's your license. There's your kid." I'm like, "Whoa! I don't even know who this kid is."
They didn't even ask you?
No, somebody had said in class that there was this young boy who had a great heart, had a really screwed up childhood, who was homeless. And if you were interested, let me know. And somehow that resonated with me. So when we went on break, I came up to the person and said, "I'm interested. How do I meet this kid?" Well, we can't really tell you who the kid is, but there's a place called Pride Lines, which is a beautifully run LGBTQ youth group that they can go to. It was a place for them to hang out after school. And you can go there, and this woman, Denise, will show you who he is. So I went to Pride Lines. Denise said, I can't point him out specifically, but there's his boyfriend, and the one sitting below him could possibly be the kid we're talking about. So I got a visual of him, and I thought, oh, okay. So when she handed me my license and said, "There's your kid," I had already seen him, but we'd never met. So I said, "Can I spend a little bit of time with him to make sure we both want to do this together?" And she said, "Yeah, you got 48 hours. He's homeless. Make it fast."
They didn't have him in a group home or anything like that?
He was staying with another family. The guy he was dating, who was maybe a year older than him, he was staying with their family because he literally was homeless.
Yeah.
So I took him out to lunch, and we spent the day together. And then I think day 2, we went for breakfast, and I said, "Look, I don't have a bedroom set. Let's go shopping for a bedroom set." And we committed to each other. He said, "Do you think you want to try this?" He's like, "Yeah, let's go ahead and try it." So 2 days later, I took him in.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
That is very different from how it usually operates here in Alabama, at least.
Well,
are your kids homeless, though?
Well, that's what surprises me. Like in Alabama, I don't think I've heard of homeless kids. I mean, I know there must be homeless kids.
There's couch surfers, definitely.
So what's interesting is I didn't think there were homeless kids. And when I would take my son to school, he would start pointing them out to me on the streets.
Oh, wow.
And you have this thing called a reticular activator. I don't know if you know what it is, but I always say if you're going to look for a car and you want a white Toyota and suddenly all you see on the streets is a white Toyota, that's your reticular activator. So when he started pointing these kids out to me, that's all I saw while I was driving was suddenly all these kids I never saw before. And I realized how bad the problem was, at least in Florida or Miami-Dade. I can't say all of Florida, but in our city, it was bad.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the thing that shocks me is that he was it sounds like tangentially at least involved with the foster care system and not in some sort of group home. Because if you're in Alabama and you're part of the foster care system, you're either in a group home or you're in a foster family.
Or you're just sleeping in DHR.
Yeah, but that's like super temporary. That's why I was kind of surprised by when you said they were homeless, because it's like if you're, I mean, I can totally see homeless kids kicked out and but they're not like in contact with the
foster
care system. But that's why I was kind of shocked. It's like
he was 9 when he entered the foster system. And I think the first 2 houses, when they found out he was gay, like they try to Christianize him or they try to beat the crap out of him. And so he left those homes. And then the third...
Try to beat the gay out of him.
Beat the gay out of him. And then when he got to the third house, it was a LGBTQ gentleman who said, you and I will stay together forever. And he was very happy with that. And then I think the guy got into a relationship and decided he didn't need my son anymore and kicked him out. And that's when he became homeless. So that's why when I got him, he was like very hesitant, like, are you going to get back together? You know, what's going on? I'm like, no, it doesn't matter whether I get back together or not. You're my kid.
My son.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what? Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, when I didn't foster, like, I wanted the parental rights terminated before I ever met any of the kids, because I know I can't foster a dog and give it back because, you know, you're mine.
Yeah.
If you live with me and you're staying with me, like, you know. So I was like, I can't do that to a kid, especially when you hear all the fucked up stories, and the mom's like, "Yeah, I'm sober," and then, you know, back to the foster care system 2 weeks later or whatever. So I was like, I don't want that to happen. I don't want mama, daddy, nobody to be coming back and saying, "Oh, that's mine." Nah, he mine. So when I met my son for the first time, I drove down to Birmingham because that's where he was.
Which is about 2 hours south of us.
Yeah. And I met the caseworker. She was wonderful. Like, I'm friends with her on Facebook. She's wonderful. And she was like, "So, Wesley, this is Jennifer. Jennifer, this is Wesley." And then she's like, "I'll be back at 5." And I'm like, wait. You're leaving me with this child? Like, you like, it's just like, how do you don't even know me? Like, the trust, like, I don't know him. You're putting me into this big building.
Right.
It's called the McWayne Center. It's like a sciencey kind of center. It's like 5 stories tall. Kids get to just go play. And so I was like, okay, red shorts, white shirt, red shorts, white shirt, red, like, I would, so that I wouldn't lose him, because it's just, you know, in your mind, there's millions of kids.
Right.
And he would just run off, and I'm like, I lost the kid. No, there he is. Okay, let me go get to him, you know. And it was just a really weird experience, because it's just like, here, bye. And I'm like, oh, shit. Okay. Hi, Wesley. And he's like, I want to go play. I'm like, okay. Like, and then we talked at lunch, you know, because they had a little cafeteria type of thing there. And so that's the only time we really talked, because, you know, he wanted to go play. And I understand you're 8.
Oh, he's 8. Got it.
Yeah, he's 8, and he's in this fun building where you can see how fast you can run and you can play with all these toys. And so I was just running and playing with toys with him, and then and I just, you know, it threw me for a loop, that it was just like, here's the key to this car.
Right.
Don't damage it. I'll be back later on
Right,
tonight.
exactly.
That's kind of how I felt. Like, you know, don't lose the car. Don't let it get stolen. And I'm like, fuck.
I don't even think they would care if it got damaged a little.
Well, but I mean, you know, it's just startling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, here.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're thrown
There
to
you
the
go.
wolves.
Yeah. You don't know him at all.
To some extent, I think it's like having a real kid. I mean, you give birth to this child, you don't know anything about it. It's like, here's your kid. Congratulations.
Yeah, but they can't run away.
Yeah, they can't move very
Correct.
far when they pop out of you.
Yeah.
But no, I see what you're saying with that. But sorry.
So this was you got him when he was 13, you said?
Yes.
And how? So
He
you
looked
said
like
he's
he was 16 or 18. I mean, this was a tall
wow.
kid. There's a picture of he and I that he sent me. I forgot about. And he's probably about 3 feet taller than me. And I'm 5'7". And that was 13.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's one of the funny stories is, well, I don't know if it's funny, but our school system was an F-rated district, so I knew I wasn't going to put him in that kind of school. And through the voucher program that we have here in Florida, I was able to get him into a nicer B-rated school. And so it would be a schlep. I'd have to drive him about 25 minutes every day, and he would take the city bus home. And it was interesting, the stories that we would talk about on the way to school, things of that nature. Was I'm a big Styx fan. And he's like, what's that? And I would blast it. And eventually he'd start putting it on because he started liking it. And we would talk about goal setting. And I remember asking him the first time, you know, what does your future look like? And he said, I don't have a future. I live day to day. And I'm like, wow, okay. So I'm a big goal setting person. So we would do little goals every day. You know, let's get through school. let's be nice to people and everything like that.
Let's not smoke anything we're not supposed
Correct.
to smoke or drink
Let's not
anything we're
smoke
not
on
supposed to
campus
drink.
because he was smoking
Yes.
cigarettes and pot at the time. He's now a big goal setter because of that. But anyhow,
How old is he now?
he's 37.
37. Okay.
So I take him to the school, and about 4 hours later, I get called from the principal's office, and Mr. Platt, could you come down and take a look at him? I drive down there, and I go into the principal's office. He says, well, apparently your son went across the street to the 7-Eleven and got some liquor, and came back to school and decided to start serving all the kids. He had a bar set up.
Oh,
He was-
shit.
How did he get liquor at 13?
He had a fake ID. He said he was 18 or 21 or something like that. And the guy, I don't know, the guy at the 7-Eleven didn't look or whatever, and he got a bottle of vodka. First of all, how do you get a bottle of vodka at 7-Eleven? I've never seen that before. But he got a bottle of vodka, and he started serving all the kids drinks. So I said, oh, he's a foster kid.
He was being a leader.
Correct.
Yeah.
But
He was,
An entrepreneur.
here's the
I
funny
mean,
part.
if he was,
Well, they
charging-
suspended him for like 2 days or something. I get him in the car, and he's like, Dad, I couldn't believe it. I got to he calls me into his office, and he says, yeah, you like this vodka? And he starts drinking it. And he said, I can't believe the principal started drinking my vodka. I said, I think you're missing the point.
I'm kind of shocked the principal was drinking the vodka
Yeah.
too.
He's like, I paid
Well,
for
the
that.
principal probably needed it.
Exactly.
Before I call this guy, let me take a shot.
Correct. He was more concerned that the principal was drinking his vodka than the fact that he got him suspended for 2 days.
Oh, I
That-
understand that.
Yeah,
one.
that's a very
mine.
13-year-old boy.
That's very much
mentality.
mine. Yeah.
That is hilarious.
Oh my gosh.
So so he's 37 now. So 24 years ago.
Yep.
So 2000 is when you got
Something like that, yeah.
him. Wow.
Did you ever adopt him?
I did. So let me shake my head for a little bit. There have been many challenges along the way, and
Of
what
course.
happened was I did end up getting back together with my ex. My ex developed prostate cancer, was going through radiation therapy.
Oh, goodness.
I had bought a bigger house for us that was under renovation, so I sold my house, moved into my ex's little house with my son. My son comes home one day and says, I'm done with school. I quit my job. I just want to chill with my friends all day. And I'm like, so that's not going to work. And then I go in the other room, and my ex is curled up in a fetal position in pain, and and he's crying, and then contractors calling about the house. It's like, okay, this is a lot.
That was a
Yeah.
lot. Yeah.
So I called Amy, who was in charge of the group, and I said, "Hey, can you take this kid for a couple days? I need to breathe." And she said, "Okay, yeah, but not permanent." And I'm like, "No, I don't need you to take him permanently, but I need a couple days."
It's like respite care.
Correct.
Yeah. That's what we have
Okay.
for foster families is respite.
Well, she took him in, and you see Amy. Amy is probably 5'1". She's about 15 years older than me, and I joked that it was they called her the Nazi foster parent because she comes in. You will not do this in my house. You will not. You will get tested for drugs every other day. You will do. And he had no idea what he was getting involved with. He thought I was tough. She was even tougher.
Wow.
And what ended up
Was she
happening
German?
was we suddenly started co-paring. He did really well with her. And we realized, well, would you like to stay a little longer? And he said, yeah. And she agreed to it. So and then he would go back and forth to her house or my house. And then we started communicating as parents, as like we were married and had this kid. And it just started, this symbiotic type relationship started, and he thrived with it.
That's good.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. So, because he looked older and he's a good-looking kid, she would get in the elevator with him, and she was living in a very gay building at the time, and these guys would get in the elevator, see her with my son. He had already slept with these guys. And she would say to
I was wondering
she would
about
say,
that.
"Stop sleeping with the guys in my building. It makes it very uncomfortable for me." So, yes, he was very popular. Anyhow, so again, he moved back in with me once we moved into the bigger house, and he was part of the drama. When I saw the drama with my ex and I getting too much, I said, "Move out, go live with Amy for a little while." I didn't want him to participate in that. And then eventually, when he turned 8, Amy got him a job. Amy ran the school systems in, I think, Miami-Dade and Broward counties. So she got him a job with the library behind the desk, and he did exceedingly well with that. Here he
That's
was,
wonderful.
18 years old, making $22,000 a year with health benefits and everything else. So he said, I want to get an apartment. And I called a buddy of mine that owned a ton of apartments on Miami Beach and said, what can you do for my kid? He says, hey, I've got a small little studio on so-and-so. So here was this 18-year-old snot-nosed kid with his own fabulous studio apartment on South Beach, working at the library system.
Whoring his little pussy out.
Correct.
All day long.
Correct.
That, as a young gay man, a young attractive gay man does.
And some of the funnier stories is when we would go, now he's 21 years old and we'd go clubbing together.
In Miami? I bet that was fun.
Yeah, and we'd go to the clubs and then guys would come up to him and they're like, who's that? He goes, that's my dad. And they're like, no, really, who is that? He goes, no, that's my dad. He goes, wait a minute, that's your dad? Yeah, like, well, that's so cool. Or
I'm surprised that we're like, that's your daddy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or we'd be sitting online, canvassing for guys, and he'd be on his site, I'd be on my site, and he gets up to go to the bathroom, and I jump on his computer and start hitting on all these guys, and he comes back, he's like, wow, Dad, like, I got all these guys, what is this? I'm like, oh, I don't know, you're very popular, aren't you? Yeah.
Oh, God, I recently, the wonders of computers and children and their phones, I recently discovered nude pictures of my son, and I was like, I did not need to see your junk.
No.
And I can't imagine if I had like a young gay man living with me, it'd just be like dick pics everywhere. Did you have to deal with that at all?
That was rule number 1. Do not want to see each other in that regard ever like that. No, this is my kid. I don't want to.
Yeah.
I will tell you that.
Do not take a picture at my house because my IP address is connected to this picture, and I do not need to be locked up for child porn.
Correct.
Yeah.
So no, do not do it.
I remember when I first got him, and this was probably about 6 months into it. He says, "Dad, I wanna have a sleepover," and I thought, "Oh, that's so cute."
With a girl?
Well, he went with his friends. He wanted to have a sleepover. I'm like, "Oh, he's got friends, and he wants to have a sleepover." Of course, honey. Yes, you can have a sleepover. And,
I bet he did.
Right. And I had a friend over at the time. We're sitting at the dining room table and we're talking, and this kid comes out of his room with an erection, walks in his underwear, goes into my kitchen, gets something to drink, and goes back into his room. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, this isn't what I was visualizing.
And how old is he?
He's probably 15 at the time.
Oh,
and I'm like,
Lord.
I said, Michael, could you come here for a minute? He comes out, he goes, yeah, Dad, what's up? I'm going, not what I visualized as far as a sleepover. Like, you're doing more than that. He's like, well, what's wrong? I'm like, not what I visualized. Could you ask your friends to leave? He's having a little menage a trois with like 4 other people in the room. I'm like, you need to go home. They need to leave.
No orgies in the house,
Yes.
please.
Not at 15.
No.
That's why I was like with a girl because
I think
then that's okay.
I think there
because
was a girl.
nothing's-
I don't know. I don't
shit.
remember. I just
Oh,
with
Jesus. Okay,
everybody
never
out of the
mind.
house. I was
Yeah, no
visualizing
kids.
something very
I
sweet.
want my son only.
Right. Yeah. No, that's not
Yeah.
what I was visualizing.
You're expecting cocoa bombs and
And
like
pillow fights and
Face
fights,
masks
yeah.
and
face masks.
scary
and
stories.
putting the
Hoping
drawers
they
in
do
the
their
freezer.
nails, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, good Lord.
So how did he do with your husband when you your current
So they
when
are
you met
2 or 3 years apart. And again, my husband's a police officer. He didn't stay as a police. My husband met me. I realized how he disliked being a police officer. And when I approached him about it, he said, I don't know what else to do. And I said, well, just so happens my sister's a published author and career consultant. You should probably go meet with her. And he did. He went through the entire program with her. And about 90 days later, he came out and he was a fashion designer.
Oh wow!
Wow.
Correct.
I need to meet her because I still have Peter Pan syndrome, and I don't know what I want to be when I grow
She's
up.
amazing, and I refer her out all the time, and people call me up and tell me she's a freaking genius, which of course I know. But so he had his upbringing. He had a military stepfather. He had a mother that worked for the county. That they got a paycheck every 2 weeks. So any idea of thinking outside the box was not a reality for him until he meets me, Mr. Entrepreneur. So his mindset was very, as I said, very mature. Now he meets my kid who is doing drugs, who is able to maintain a job, but is having a really crazy lifestyle. And the two of them are in conflict with each other. Mm-hmm. So it was not a good relationship at first. Amy asked us to come up to her family home in Truro, myself, my husband, my son, and her.
Is that in Florida?
Truro is near P-Town.
Near Massachusetts.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
I was like P-Town.
Yeah,
Like
Provincetown.
I was like, but because he's saying St. Pete.
Oh,
So
yeah,
I
yeah.
Well,
was
at the
like,
time we're
are
in
you,
Miami
like-
at the time.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's just I don't know anything about anything.
I understand.
So.
She's a poor country girl.
So
I am not a poor country girl.
Aw. So she leaves us. Amy leaves us in the kitchen, and she says, "I'm gonna go run some errands. The three of you need to sit down and have a conversation." So they start at it, and my husband's like, "Well, here's what my expectations are," and my son says, "Well, here's what I'm dealing with," and I could see my son starting to get really upset. And I grabbed his hand because he's getting ready to get up and leave. I grabbed his hand and said, "Don't leave. We're going to figure this out. We don't have a choice." He wasn't my husband at the time, but clearly I'm in a committed relationship. And I said, "He's not going anywhere. You're not going anywhere. And we got to resolve this." And I wouldn't let go of his hand. And he sat back down and he looked at my husband. He said, "I want Ron to adopt me." And I think he was 18 at the time or so. And my husband turned to me and said, "I'm not sure I want that." And I looked at my husband and I said, "I'm not sure it's up to you.
Oh,
This is something he and I have. This is the one decision you don't get to make. We don't get to make together." And he looked at me. We went for a walk later, my husband and I apologized to him, and he said, "No, I got it. And you were right. It's not a decision I get to make. It's a decision you have to make." But I said to my son, "I will adopt you, and we will have this discussion." So when I got back home, I got on the phone, and he said, "Are we going to pursue?" Now, Amy had already adopted him as his mother, and she did it, I think, when he was like 17 or 18 years old. I had waited because his life was crazy.
had they repealed the law where it would
Yes.
allow you to adopt
Yes,
him?
they had at that time. So I sat him down and I was on the phone with him and I said, "You have to understand where my family comes from. I'm a first generation Holocaust survivor. My mother was the Anne Frank. She was the one in the attic hiding from the Nazis in Belgium. My grandfather died in Auschwitz. My mother's stepfather, who I consider to be my grandfather, is a war hero. He saved tons of Jews and was tortured by the Nazis. My dad's father came from Poland and started from nothing. My grandfather came here with nothing." I said, "So we are fighters. I mean, we
Right.
Platts are fighters, and we have been in the worst things, gone through the worst things in our life, and we've struggled and we've been able to succeed to where we are now. You're joining that chain. So everything you do affects all those people. It affects our entire history. So I want you to understand the responsibility of joining our family. It's not just what Amy did, which is, oh, let's go ahead and get an adoption and, put you in my will and all that kind of stuff." And he sat very quietly and he said to me, "Wow, this is not where I was expecting the conversation to go. I have to call you back." I said, "Okay."
Mature.
Yeah. And when I told my husband, he's like, "Well, why didn't he give you an answer then and there?" I said, "Because he's a processor. I'm good." If he had said yes at that point, I wouldn't have trusted him.
You would have had okay, think about it. I'm going to give you like 2 to 3 days and then let me know
Yeah.
what your answer is.
And he called me 2 days later and he said, "I'm in." I said, "Okay, let's start the process." So I actually adopted him at 21 as an adult, and we made precedent with the courts because I had a really good family law attorney, Elizabeth Schwartz in Miami, and she had her phone, and the judge was like, "Can I even do this?" And she said, "Yes, Your Honor." And she picked up her phone, "According to so and so and so and so, according to whatever." And he said, "All right, let's do it." So I adopted him as an adult, and it's funny because they give him a new birth certificate with Amy's name and my name, and I wanted him to go put his footprint on his 11-inch footprint on there.
That's funny.
That's so funny.
And that's it. So he became my kid officially.
Well, yours and Amy's kid?
Yes.
Like
Yes.
officially?
Yeah.
On the birth certificate.
Okay. So is Amy German? Because you called her a Nazi earlier.
It was her. I don't mean that in a mean way. It was she was very, well, do this and da. She was very, very
Right.
strict and.
Right, but is she
No,
German?
she's not.
Oh, okay.
Jennifer's German.
I'm
that's all.
German. So that's why I was like, when you said that, I was like, I understand that. My mom's full German. She was, born and raised in Nuremberg. And I'm like, that's what I grew up
Right.
with. The look, you don't even have to fucking say
Exactly.
anything. She just gives you that look and you just stop. And I'm 44 years old and she can still give me that fucking look. And I'm like, what did I do?
Right, and Amy can make me pee in my pants, and she's not even German.
Right, okay. But she has that
Personality.
That personality.
Correct. Yes, very strong
Yeah.
personality.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
That's funny. But I'm like in awe of your family, like to help and I don't think any of my family was part of the Nazi party, and I think they tried to help, but no one's ever really like talked about it. And like my Opa has passed, my Oma has passed, so I don't really get to, I don't know that side of our history back in the day.
So my mother survived because there were good Germans.
Right.
And there were good, well, she was in Belgium at the time. So there were, not everybody was bad. Not everybody was a Nazi. Thank God there were people out there who knew what was going on and wanted to save people. And that's why my mother survived.
Took the risk.
Took the risk.
Yeah, because that is like.
I mean, in my mom's case, she went to a convent, but my aunt went to a foster family, and my aunt was only 6 months old at the time.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
So my mother, she was 5, and the nuns took her in, and she was there, I think, for up to a year before she was able to go back home.
Yeah, it's just crazy. I just wanted to, say kudos to your fighters because, knowing that history as you grow up, I'm sure made you even more of a fighter.
Absolutely. And that's why even in today's political environment, my sister and I are like ready to take arms and go fight. It's like, we're not going to let anybody screw with us.
Right.
Amen to that.
Right. Yeah. Instead of Nazis, we have Orange Man.
We have
exactly.
MAGAs.
And I got to tell you, it's frighteningly the same.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah. It feels like history's repeating itself.
Yeah. I'm thinking of Handmaid Tales. Like I'm 44 and I'm like, phew, I can't have babies no more. So
I can't be birthing no children.
I'll be good. But I was like, let me see. If my mama's full German, maybe I can move to Germany.
Absolutely.
And be like, I was like, I might have to start looking into this shit because second term, it's 4 more years. Anything can happen, kind of.
Well, thanks to my dad,
I'll just
who was Canadian.
Marry Jason and be like,
yeah, come on over. Go. My dad's was Canadian before he became a U.S. citizen, so we were able to get our Canadian citizenship, but we really wanted a Belgium citizenship. But Belgium doesn't allow it to go on the mother side. It has to be on the father side.
Huh.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Come on, misogyny.
Assholes. Right.
Misogyny, come on.
Come on.
Well, I was going to say, when you were talking about your adoption story, funnily enough, I adopted, so my husband and I adopted our 17-year-old son together in Alabama, and his sister had aged out of the foster care system, and we were going to adopt her because she had aged out, but they weren't giving her custody of her daughter because they're like, well, you're not stable, and they were fucking her around, like they were making it difficult for her to get custody of. So we're like, well, why don't we adopt her? We'll adopt her. And Alabama wouldn't let us adopt as a gay couple an adult. So I had to go down to Florida. I had to go to Destin, Florida to adopt my adult because there was no residency requirement. So I also adopted an adult child in Florida.
You could probably thank Elizabeth Schwartz for that. She set the
Thank you, Elizabeth Schwartz.
Yeah, thank you.
She's also one of the attorneys that
crazy.
fought for gay marriage as well, by the way.
If me and Jason had been married, it wouldn't have been a big deal. Which is crazy what's the fucking difference?
Correct.
Because
I mean, I know what the fucking difference is, but I mean, like, really, like, is just,
So how is the kiddo doing nowadays?
Challenging. He got married. Him and his husband got married 8 years ago. They're now divorced. But they did adopt a baby girl.
Wow.
Yes, right out of the vajayjay. And she... I don't care about my son anymore. Just give me my granddaughter. She's now 5 years old. It's Miss Savannah, and she is freaking amazing. There's been a lot of challenges as far as their parenting skills, our position as grandparents, my husband and I.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
It was funny was when we wanted her to call me Saba, which is Yiddish for grandfather, and him Zeta. My husband's not Jewish, but he's Jewish, as the rabbi said when we got married. So she ends up calling me Grandpa and calls him Zeta. So the non-Jew is Zeta, and the Jew is his grandpa. Whereas she says now
you
Grandpa.
can tell them as much as you want to, but they're going to come up with whatever they want to come up with. It doesn't matter.
We have 4 grandkids, and Zane was always, my husband's name is Zane. He's like, oh, call me Granddaddy Z. None of them call him Granddaddy Z. I'm Pawpaw to the younger 3, and Grandpa for the oldest.
Yeah, and then Granddad for Zane.
Yeah. So.
It's just Granddaddy Z is just too much
Too many syllables.
for a baby. You know, I'm Auntie J, so that's easy.
Right.
I'm not, there's no blood, but I'm Auntie. So it's funny is I'm Auntie J to all of the grandbabies and to his daughter.
And my son.
Okay.
Well, you think, but he's never called me Auntie J. Kiki actually said on the podcast that she thinks of me as Auntie J.
That's true.
But so it's funny, like, it's weird because, like, you got the mama and the kids all calling me Auntie J, and it's like, okay, whatever. I don't care. I like it. It's fine.
It's a fun, chosen family.
Yeah, yeah.
Ours is a little weird because she's got 2 gay dads, both Hispanic, Cuban Americans. Then she's got a Jewish grandfather. She's got a Puerto Rican Cuban grandfather. She's got a Polish aunt, Jewish aunt. I mean, it's like, and then she's got my son's sister. The whole family is just completely a mixed breed of everything. It's wonderful. Except she's black, and we have, and I've said you've got to stop putting her in quinceañera type outfits, and she's not Hispanic, she's black. We need to engage her community and make sure
in her culture,
exactly, make sure that she understands where she comes from. And they're like, no, we're good. So of course, when we get her, we take her, and make sure that she is amongst children that look like her, so she doesn't feel out of sorts.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, quinceañera is not till 15. She can make up her own mind at that time. At 5, you just need to get her, take her to, Juneteenth.
Correct.
And,
well, we ended up signing her up at, we were taking care of her every other week for about 2 months. And we signed her up at the YMCA. And the preschool there is freaking amazing. And all the kids look like her. And I think it was the first time that she was like looking around going, wow, this is, and I'm like, honey, go for it. This is your community right here.
Right.
So she eats it up. And what I love is that because she gets to see the diversity, I don't think she'll ever think anything's weird in her life.
Which is good.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I adopted an African American child. But me and my mom are the minority in my family because she married a black man. So my half brother is half black, half white, and then my sisters are all black. So, and all my nieces and nephews are black. Mm-hmm. And so, like, Wesley sees all black people except for me and my mom.
There you go.
So I'm like, I already got it made. Like, we do everything anyways. Right. So, it's I know the culture because I grew up going to schools that were predominantly black. And so, when you're the minority in a situation, I don't know about anybody else, but I felt like I had to know more than everybody else. So, like, I did research on black history and, like, I would be telling them, like, I would read books about it and everything back in the day. And I'd be like, oh, did you know this? And they're like, how are you blacker than me?
Right.
And I'm like, because I don't want y'all to think that I don't know your history.
Right. Well, and my son was getting her white Barbie dolls, and everything was white. And my husband went out and bought her a black Barbie doll. And the books that we read to her at night are about her hair and her eyes and all these wonderful things that are now out there for us to show her. And she's already memorized all the books. When we sit down, we read to her before she goes to bed, and she's like, my hair looks like that, and oh, my eyes look like that. And it's like, yes, baby, that's true. Because at one time she said, I want to be white. And my husband and I pulled her aside and said, tell us why you want to be white. Because you're beautifully black. You are a beautiful black woman, queen. And when I'm doing her, I had to learn how to do her hair. I've never done black girl hair before, right? And my husband's like, oh yeah, his stepfather's black. He has black siblings, so when they were kids, he was the one that was doing their hairs and stuff. So he's showing you got to do this, and you got to do that. And I'm like, so there I am. I have to take her to school in the morning because my husband goes to work very early, and I'm sitting there doing her hair, and I'm just loving it. And she's playing with her doll, and I'm pulling and tugging at her hair and putting in the creams and all that kind of stuff. And then when she gets home from school, my husband's like, you did okay. And I'm like,
it's better than last time. You're
I'm
growing.
like, I'm trying. This stuff is hard.
It's hard, yeah.
Is your granddaughter tender-headed?
Is she what?
Tender-headed?
What does that mean?
Like real sensitive when you like start styling her hair. Oh, Jesus Christ. My granddaughter, we finally settled on dreadlocks because like I would spend like 4 hours just trying to get her hair ready for braids or whatever, but she would just be crying the entire time anyone messed with her hair. And so I was just like, the tenderness of her head was just too much. And it was like, I knew if I was a black mom, frankly, I've seen enough black moms be like, shut up.
We got to do this.
You're going to deal with it. Yeah, we got to do it. But I was just like, it's hard. It was so hard for me to like hurt her but we finally set it all in the locks and it's been a lifesaver, especially since we got someone coming to the house to do it.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
We were talking about the other day, back in the day, watching the hot iron on the stove. I was with my black friends and they were like, you'd watch the hot iron and you're like, that's going to be on my head. And then mama would grease it and then like you'd have to hold your ear down because if your dumbass didn't, you'd get burnt and you'd have a scar. And then she's like, I can remember the grease that she put onto it dripping down and burning, but you can't move because she's straightening your hair. And I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I'm white. And they just started laughing. Because we were talking about like being in the rain and like going swimming. And I'm like, psh, I ain't got shit to worry.
I have such a clear vision that someday, God willing, she's going to be the CEO of NASDF. And I've had a visual of it where she is dressed to the nines and she's got a big afro and looking like a power woman. I sat her down one day when she was 4. I started this. I said, so when you grow up, and when people start to ask you in school, what do you want to be when you grow up? I said, I don't want to hear you say, I want to be a nurse. I want to be a teacher. I want to be a fireman. I said, I want you to be a CEO. Do you understand that? And she goes, what is that, Grandpa? And I said, you're going to run the company, the entire company. You're going to tell other people what to do, and you're going to be fabulous. And she says, okay. So my son calls me the other day and he says he was in Walmart and some lady came up and said, oh, what a beautiful little girl. And she goes, I am a CEO.
Love it.
I love it. That is awesome.
And she's going to be 6 now. And I'm like, so what are we going to be when we grow up? I'm a CEO. And I go, why do you want to be CEO? She says, I want to buy an Ilsa car. One of those little electric cars. I'm like, girl, you already have one. I want another one. I said, well, if you're a CEO, you can have lots of cars. I want lots of cars. Okay.
that is so precious,
so funny and cute.
So how old is NS, the National Association
for
Single and Divorced Families? How old is it now?
So we launched it. We've been working on it for about 2.5 years. We launched it. I did a soft launch 6 months ago, where we were waiting to get the insurance in line and the software. I don't know. I hired a software company. Said, "Oh, we'll have it up in 90 days." It's been 6 months. I don't have anything. So the company we used to do our enrollment, I don't know why my co-founder and I didn't think of this first. We called them and said, can you put this software together for us? They're like, yeah, in like 2 seconds. We're like, okay, great. So we're waiting for that to be finalized. It's a matter, I want people to be able to go to NASDF, join, and then click the insurance button. It asks the questions, they put their credit card in, and they get a certificate of insurance immediately right then and there. So the process is very simple, but and it should be a simple process. It will be now. And once that's up and running, that's when we have a whole PR campaign that's starting June 1st, as well as all these podcasts that I'm on. So I really, and I'm following a success, other people that have done this successfully. There was another insurance product that was on the market a few years ago, and the guy got in the Wall Street Journal and he was in Time Magazine and attorneys were blogging about it, and it was a really crappy product, in my opinion. And then it stopped in 2022, and I reached out to the guy and said, what happened? The insurance company he used, who I was familiar with, was doing some shady stuff, and he had to pivot to another carrier, and then some other things happened. And I said, how did you get in the Wall Street Journal? And he said, I have a big mouth. And I said, okay, what happened after you got in the Wall Street Journal? He said, I was selling about 60,000 of these things a month.
Wow.
I was like, oh, and that's a crappy product. I didn't tell him that.
Right.
So I've directed my PR firm that I've hired to say, get me in the Wall Street Journal, get me into the Time Magazine, get me into Forbes Magazine, get me on these periodicals, let me explain what this product is. I'd be more than happy to do 60,000 of these things a month. That'd be crazy.
Hell yeah.
But the association itself has about over $3,500 worth of free and discounted products and services that we offer for the $19 a month. And the great thing about it is, if you type in the word divorce in a Google search, you get about 3 pages worth of attorneys. It takes about 4, 5, or 6 pages into it before you start seeing resources. and
Right.
support groups and child custody things that you can go to. We're putting all that under our umbrella so that you don't have to do that. And Joy, my co-founder, is doing it state by state because not all of these companies are national. A lot of them are local. So
Right.
she's
Right.
categorizing them by state. So if you're in Alabama and you need child custody advice or something like that, you can go to the site and there it is. You don't have to go to Google. We'll have it on our site. So it's
Okay.
a
Awesome.
huge database of things. We're also meeting phenomenal people along the way. I mean, one of my favorites is Our Children Have Rights. It's a nonprofit organization here in Tampa, and they provide child custody advice, legal advice, free advice, discounted advice, things that I'm learning about child custody that I never knew before. And I don't even know how this guy makes money, but they're out there and they're hustling, and I've been able to refer people to them. You would never have known about him had we not started this and he hadn't been doing what he was doing. Actually, it was the Chamber of Commerce who introduced us. So,
wow.
so many great things are out there that are so hard to find. I'm meeting divorce coaches who thought about divorce coaches, mediation companies, alternatives to hiring an attorney. Not that an attorney is a bad thing to do, but if you don't have the money, mediation.
They're expensive.
A friend of mine recently got divorced, and she was in a bad relationship, and she needed to hire an attorney. So the attorney wanted $5,000. Well, she doesn't have $5,000 because the guy's not helping her out. So she goes for free legal advice. Well, what they do is they take her income and his income, and they say you're not qualified for free advice.
Oh, Jesus.
Right?
Wow.
So I thought, I want to put together a credit card like Care Credit. I don't know if you've heard of Care Credit.
I have not.
I haven't
You
either.
get it if you need plastic surgery or if you have vet bills. That's all you can use them for is your pet and plastic surgery.
Okay.
Right?
Is that a Florida thing?
No, it's a national thing. It's Synchronicity
okay.
is the bank that backs them up.
I got you.
So I reached out to them and said, hey, can you put together a credit card that I can only use for legal services, mediation, or anything doing with divorce? And they said, no. Okay. We don't do that. It's out of our category. So I want to put together, and I'm putting it out there for anybody that can help us do this. I want to put together a credit card that will work with people with poor credit, say 400 credit score, and give them up to $5,000 so that they can go to an attorney and the attorney says, well, I charge $5,000, here's the credit card. And they can
Right.
get the process started. Or if they go to a mediator, or if they need a divorce coach, or whatever, they need to file with the county, and the county is, whatever is divorce related is what this credit card would be used for. And that's something
Okay.
that's
That's
we're working on
awesome.
right now. Yeah,
Well, good luck on that. I hope you find somebody. Now, I have a question. You said that the person would go onto the website and put in their credit card information for like $19
Yeah.
a month.
It's a membership
Yeah.
thing.
Who is the person that's doing that? The one that's paying the child support, or the one that's needing the child support, or both?
So two different things. If you wanted,
Okay.
if you don't need the insurance, or if you do need the insurance, if you want to be a member of the association and receive discounts on diapers and formulas and career services, and one of the things we offer is, what I love about this real estate is you're going to need to buy or sell a house, right? So
Right.
if you use one of our realtors in our network, we will give you 25% towards your closing costs.
wow.
So
Okay.
whatever commission I make, I'm a realtor. If I get a referral from another realtor, I'm going to pay them, say, a 25% referral fee. When I get paid that 25% from the referral that I'm giving to the agent, that 25% is going back towards our closing cost. So
Wow.
that's huge.
Yeah.
Do you work in Alabama?
Yeah, we do.
'Cause, you know, I'm a single parent, so you
Absolutely.
know, I might need
We're
that.
we're nationwide. So with that $19, they get all these things. The
Okay.
discount.
I just wanted a little bit of clarification because I'm not I like I said earlier, I don't know anything about insurance, but that I need it and I pay
Right.
it. It just comes out of my account, so I don't even really look at anything. So I just wanted to kind of, for the listeners too, to say,
If you
to help them understand
If you want the
what
insurance,
this entails.
Then we
Right.
have a separate tab on there, not yet, but it will be up in the next 2 weeks, where you would hit
Right.
the insurance. You'd put in all the information about, what is your current maintenance, what's your child support and alimony amount. In other words, if you're paying $5,000, I'm not going to give you $10,000 worth of insurance. You can only buy $5,000 worth of insurance.
Right.
What's your age? Blah blah blah. It spits out a number. It's $200 for the year. You put your credit card in. You also have to become a member of the association, because it's the association that's actually the policy holder. So you would become a member of the association, and you get to buy the insurance at the same time. but you don't have to buy the insurance to be a member. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Two separate things.
So I just kind of wanted a little bit of, clarification. So if I'm a member, so if I just do the $19 a month, do I have to do a whole year?
No, it's monthly. You get billed monthly.
Monthly. Okay. Just because I don't know. And then also, if anybody's like me and listening, they might not know. So
And
that's why I'm asking these questions. I'm sorry.
we want to, in about 2 years, when I have enough experience on the insurance side, I want to be able to offer it as part of the membership for every single member automatically. But I got to have some experience on it first before I can do that. And I want to eventually drop, as we grow, as our membership gets to 5,000 members, I want to start seeing if we can work on making that $19 a month membership fee cheap. Because as we grow, things for us that we provide, there's a cost to it. And that cost continues to drop as we get bigger and bigger. That's why AARP charges, I think, $19 a year, because they get so many other financial resources from their advertising and their products that they offer and everything else that it drops the price. We're not there yet, but as we grow, it will get to that point.
That is awesome.
That is-
This sounds like a really good resource for. So is it just for single parents and
Single and
divorced?
divorced.
Or is
Anybody
it
can
for
join.
anybody? pretty
Anybody
much?
can join. I mean, the stuff that
Okay.
we have discounts for Lenovo laptops and computers. We have Office Max, Office Depot discounts. Yeah, I mean, there's
That's where we get our school supplies.
exactly. There's so many things, and again, as we continue to grow, I'm going to go to grocery stores and say, can you give our members discounts? I'm going to go to Target and say, can you give us discounts on children's clothing and diapers and things of that nature? And again,
That's
they listen
awesome.
when you have 25, 30, 100,000 members and you say, here's what I need. They're like,
Right.
how can we help?
Right. You got that backing
Correct.
that says, I'm going to be like AARP one day and have millions of people.
So
That's right.
That's the goal.
Here's what I love.
And then we're going to have a CEO in
See, by
20
correct.
years.
AARP is actually mentoring us. That's how
Wow.
much they believe in us.
That's awesome.
That is really
Because then
awesome.
you can really learn a lot because they've been around for a long time.
Invaluable. And
Yes.
And they've looked at what we're doing and they said, you are absolutely doing this 100% correct. You've like mimicked us. I said, I know. I've studied you guys pretty deeply over the last 20, 30 years. I know how you do this.
You and your dad,
Correct.
too, I guess, in the beginning. Yeah. Awesome. All right.
Well,
Well,
this is great.
Yeah.
So, all right, this is we're gonna take a quick break, and then when we get back, we'll do
story time.
story time, and head on out. So,
Yeah.
we'll be right back. And we're back. All right. So normally we would do snack time, but it was kind of frantic today, so we're going to skip snack time. So, Mr. Ron, do you have a story time for us? A funny story about your kids or about you growing up?
So I had to talk with my husband and say, I need some funny stories about my kid. And he brought up because, you go through so many things. He said, yes, the time you guys went kayaking. So my son and I have been kayaking a couple of times. And what's fun that now he's 37. Once he hit 21, things got a little bit more fun for us. We're in Miami, and if you live in Miami, Hollover has these, it's called Alita Park, and you can rent kayaks. And he and I decided to go out one day, and we're out, and it's kind of wavy, and we're having a good time, and they have these little islands, and we decide to pull up to an island, and he and I are sitting cooling in the water, and he says, it'd be really good right now is if we could do a shot. And I'm like, oh yeah, that'd be really cool, like some tequila or something. He goes, yeah.
How old?
He's like 25 now, 26.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. I was thinking 13
No,
again.
no,
I'm
no.
like, Jesus, Ron.
We're
Okay.
adults, and
Okay,
and we're
perfect.
talking about tequila, and I swear to God, a bottle of tequila floats by us. It's completely sealed. It's never been opened. And it literally comes right to us, and we both look at each other and go, "No fucking way!" And we sat there and we had tequila in the middle of the water. It was literally sealed.
That
Somebody
is-
must have had it thrown off a boat or something. I don't know, but
That
was.
is-
That is
hilarious.
hilarious.
But the fun.
That's the
I
good
do have.
I need to go kayaking where you are
Exactly.
because tequila's expensive. So,
I'm just glad
you
when you started saying something floated by, I was like, please don't tell me it was like a brick of cocaine
No,
in
no,
no.
Miami.
That's the 80s. And unfortunately, that
Okay.
doesn't happen anymore. But
Unfortunately.
Look, I am the.
That's a story for another time.
That's a different
I think I
podcast.
was in my 30s before I tried anything that was bad. I'm like the as innocent as you could get. I think the worst I did was get drunk at times. But I think the second story was when he had to go to the hospital one time, and the joke was, don't ever wake Dad up. And again, he's in his 20s. He's living with me part time or whatever, and he calls up Amy and he says, Mom, I got to go to the hospital. He was about to have surgery for something. I don't want to go into what it was about. But he had to wait till the next day before we could take him in. And he calls up. He goes, Mom, I'm in so much pain. I don't know what to do. And she's like, well, go into the next room and wake up your dad. No, I can't wake up Dad. I can't. And she says, you clearly have to go to the hospital. Wake your father up. So he hangs up the phone. He comes in. He goes, Dad, I got to go to the hospital. I can't sit still. I'm in so much pain. I'm like, okay, go get dressed and make sure you brush your teeth and comb your hair. He goes, why would I brush my teeth and comb my hair? I have to go to the emergency room. I'm like, trust me. Trust your dad. Go brush your teeth and come here. It's like, Dad, just get dressed and take me to the hospital. I'm like, okay. So I get in the car and I'm doing 100 and something down Biscayne Boulevard trying to get to the hospital. And we get to the hospital. He puts on one of the hospital gowns. They have him in. And I'm sitting there and the curtain opens up and the hottest doctor is like, he said, so tell me what's wrong. And my son looks up, he goes, and I'm like, I told you, brush your teeth and comb your hair, girl. You don't know when the,
That's right.
So that doctor leaves. And then the next thing, the curtain opens again. It's the hottest nurse we've ever seen. And he goes, come with me. And I said, I told you, comb your hair, girl. Listen to Daddy.
Oh, good Lord.
That is hilarious.
Oh, my Lord.
That's why I always brush my teeth and comb my hair and wear clean underwear.
That's
Correct.
right. You never know.
Correct.
You never know. You never know.
All right, Mr. Ron. Where can our listeners find any?
Find out about you and NASDF.
NASDF. So it's NASDF.org is our website.
That's easy.
Correct. You can also go to our YouTube page, NASDF.org. There's no dot. We have a TikTok, which is also under NASDF.org. The TikTok is going to have more of our podcasts, this podcast, as well as some different things that my co-founder and I are doing, some interviews that we do with our sponsors and some vendors that we use. We did recently an interview with our Aflac sponsor, and great interview.
Aflac.
Yeah, Aflac. Because they...
Sorry, I had to.
No, I get
just
it.
An automatic response.
And I've told them I don't think the duck is... I think it's funny, but it doesn't really say what they do.
No.
We have a great interview telling them what products that only our members can have through Aflac that the general public can't. And there'll be more of that with our mediation company, our mental health company, things of that nature. And also, what else are we on? NASDF. Facebook, of course. Facebook and Instagram. Yep.
And
Is it still the NASDF ORG?
On Facebook, I think it's just NASDF.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll see our little symbol.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've got all your media, so I'll make sure and link everything onto
sorry.
the website or the podcast post and in our Instagram when I post all this stuff. So
And then you can ask your handsome husband if he wants to be on the podcast. 'Cause,
Yeah.
I kind of want to see him and hear his stories
absolutely.
too. You know.
and I was about to say, and your co-parent and your son, if they would like to come be on the podcast, we'd
Oh, yeah.
love to
I
hear
don't think
them.
Amy's kind of a recluse. She's living
Okay.
in New
Right.
York in her little mid-century modern house, very happy.
Well, we do the
No, I know that.
So
she's not,
she's
she's
fine.
not the public person as I am. My husband's
I got
more
you.
shy, but once you get him, but he's doing, he teaches Zumba as well. So I'm trying to get him to increase his Zumba audience online. So I will tell him about you guys so that whatever publicity he
Okay.
can get is certainly going to be good.
I mean, we're just. I'm interested now,
Yeah, this
especially because he's younger
And police officer to
he's-
fashion
and a
designer.
Yeah.
That's-
Ex-police officer turned fashion designer is just like an interesting story, and then we can hear his side of
parenting.
parenting with your foster son now, real son. I'm
Yep.
not even gonna say adopted
Correct.
son, but
Yeah.
he's yours now, no
I
matter
can't
what.
get rid of him.
I mean,
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Ron, thank you so much for being on. And for all our listeners, if you have any funny stories about your kids,
or if you need some bad parenting advice, or if you have any ideas for topics,
please email us at guidetopoorparenting@gmail.com.
or call us at 256-274-1329 and leave a message.
What's that number again?
And thanks 256-274-1329.
Did I say it too quickly?
No, I just want to make sure I heard it because I need to hear things more than once.
Oh, okay. Well, you can see it on our
on the post.
on the yeah.
But thanks for listening to another episode of A Guide to Parenting.
If you like our podcast, please give us a 5-star rating on whatever your platform you're listening on.
And if you don't like our podcast, just like when our kids ask why they have to clean their room, even though you can't see the floor when you open the door.
Or you can't even open the door. Tough shit.
Thanks, Ron.
My
Thank
pleasure,
you,
guys.
Ron. It was nice meeting
Same
you.
here. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.